Right, and if you wish, you can also tell us your views about that at Morning Live SABC. Now, moving along, the Stichting Steinhoff Recovery Foundation, which is an independent body established to oversee the administration of claims that were filed as part of what has been described as South Africa's biggest corporate fraud, will this week begin the process of making payouts to thousands of qualifying and verified claimants. Now, this comes after a long court battle which saw Steinhoff settled claims with different groups, including pension funds and retail investors who suffered losses after Steinhoff's shares plummeted in 2017. Steinhoff International Holdings former Chief Executive Markus Joose is yet to appear in a German court for his role in the saga after an arrest warrant was issued against him. So to talk more about how these payout claims would work and what it actually means, we're joined by Financial Mail editor and author Rob Rose. Rob, good to have you with us here on Morning Live. Welcome.
Morning.
So first off, let's just talk about the latest developments in the Steinhoff saga and, of course, getting to this point where at least some of those who've lost money would be paid out. So just talk to us about the sort of settlements that would be seen. And, of course, one would imagine everybody's not going to get back what they lost. But let's talk about some of these settlements.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the market value of the company plunged massively after December the 6th, 2017, when the revelations of fraud came out. So the company is now worth a fraction of what it was. But the people who bought into the company claimed money for their losses. And it was quite difficult for Steinhoff to raise the money to do this. And in the end, they settled on perhaps paying people maybe a fifth or a sixth of what they actually had lost. So if you submitted a claim for, say, R1 million, you get paid out 200,000 Rand. And I think there was 120 billion Rand of claims. And I think they settled it for around 24 billion. So, it's true that people are getting nowhere close to what they lost, but at least they're getting something which actually doesn't normally happen in a big company collapse like this. In the big collapses in South Africa, like LeisureNet, like Sambo, like things like that, all the people who had shares in the company got back zero. So that's generally the expectation when you have a massive company collapse. So I suppose Steinhoff broke the mold in many ways, but this is one of the ways in which it was different and I suppose set a template for the way future corporate disasters like this can be handled.
Rob, how many claimants have been verified to receive these payouts?
The number varies a lot because actually what they did is they made a settlement based upon the expectations of who would claim. So I don't think that there's yet been a determinate number that we're actually going to claim. You'd expect there to be a lot of smaller shareholders. There are some large shareholders in South Africa, the ones who manage pension funds like Coronation and Allan Gray and those kind of level of companies. And then there's the smaller guys who might have just bought a share or two here and there. So, it would easily run into the thousands, but the actual number was not yet verified last I spoke to Steinhoff.
Is there a clearly defined order, if you will, or sort of hierarchy that will come into play in terms of how people would be paid out, Rob? So what could some of these claimants expect to happen in terms of the process of the payout?
Well, actually, the settlement was reached last year, so it's been a long time in coming. So the claimants, the ones who were contacting me, were asking when it was going to happen. So the fact that it's finally happening this week is I suppose, good news for them. The money should get delivered to them through the various agencies. Like, for example, the German company you mentioned, the German intermediary, would collect the money and then pay it over to the individuals. And same with the big institutions in South Africa. I suppose the issue now becomes how long can Steinhoff survive? The company was essentially due to go bankrupt in June because it couldn't pay any of its debt. So the thing is that Steinhoff's lifeline was due to end pretty soon. So, it is kind of remarkable that at this stage, the late stage of the game, that people are getting back any money.
It certainly is. They have been given some reprieves, though. If you look at what's been happening in the United States, where mattress manufacturer Tempur Sealy, they sealed an agreement to buy the US-based mattress firm and also Steinhoff's stake for about $4 billion. What's been the reaction to that deal, and how has it, if at all, assisted in terms of just making sure that most of these claimants do get paid, Rob?
Well, Steinhoff did have money to pay the claimants, so certainly that money is there. The issue is whether Steinhoff can keep going. So what it's been trying to do is desperately sell any assets it still has, because essentially it has 10 billion euros of debt, and its assets are about 6 billion. So, it's 4 billion euros in the red, which is a lot of money. So what it's been trying to do is to sell whatever assets it has, and one of them was Mattress Firm. Mattress Firm is a company in the US that it bought shortly before it collapsed. And it was one of the reasons why it collapsed. People thought that this was a very odd deal at the time. Steinhoff overpaid for Mattress Firm. And then over the years, the last 5 years or so, Mattress Firm sort of recovered to some extent. And now they've obviously been able to get some decent money for it. It's essentially 4 billion euros, of which I think they'll probably get about 2.4 perhaps after various debts have been paid. It's something, but it's certainly not enough to cancel the debt for Steinhoff. So this is not going to save Steinhoff or keep it alive. I think Steinhoff is still facing a big reckoning with its creditors at some point, but it's still something that it didn't have before. But in terms of endangering the creditor payments, this was always on the margin anyway. They had the money to make those payments, and those were always going to be made.
And of course, Rob, the million-dollar question, where is Markus Joose? Because two former Steinhoff International Holdings directors who were employed at the company's European units actually did make an appearance in the German court last week. So where is Markus Joose, and when is he likely to make his way to Germany to face trial?
Well, I think he's laid his cards firmly on the table in that respect. His trial was meant to begin last month, and he didn't arrive. And his lawyers said that he was scared of perhaps not being able to travel out the country, and so he didn't arrive. So I don't think Markus Joose is going to arrive in Germany anytime soon to face these charges. I think the real issue with Steinhoff is accountability for the fraud, and who will be accountable here in South Africa, because I think that to some extent, it's an emblem of the lack of accountability in the private sector. And so people want to see prosecutions in South Africa for this. It is South Africa's largest corporate fraud. There was 106 billion rand of fictitious transactions. And so certainly the people in this country, shareholders and the public, want to see prosecutions here. And that's what we need to get from our prosecution service. But that has been very slow in coming. There's been no arrests, even though it's 5 years later. And I think that is that's the major sticking block for Steinhoff, and it's the sort of thing that until we have accountability for Steinhoff, we won't, our corporate sector there'll be a big question mark hanging over it.
Well, we have to leave it there this morning. Rob Rose, thank you so much for updating us there on the latest regarding Steinhoff. Rob Rose is Financial Mail editor and author, talking to us about Steinhoff's claimants finally receiving their first payout settlement this week.